Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for the City of Westminster, April 17th, 2024. Clerk, please call roll.
Chair Wilbert.
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bowie.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hamade.
Here.
Commissioner Power.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum with all members present.
Thank you. Now's the time we're going to salute the flag, and if Commissioner Power would lead us in that'd be great.
Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 3, report from the Planning Secretary on late communication items.
Thank you, Chair Wilbert. We do not have any late communications tonight.
Fantastic. Item number 4, ex parte communications, and this section is intended to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal any disclosure regarding site visits or ex parte communication about the public hearing or regular business. Do we have any ex parte communications tonight? None. Fantastic. Item number 5, special presentations. Item 5.1, a summary of the city's 2023 housing element annual housing progress report.
Thank you, Chair Wilbert. And members of the Planning Commission, good evening. We'll start with item 5.1. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Alice and Jarfa, who have a presentation for us tonight.
Okay. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Today's presentation is a summary of the 2023 Annual Housing Element Progress Report, or the APR. Government Code Section 65400 requires cities to submit an Annual Housing Progress Report, or APR, on the city's progress in implementing its adopted housing element and on progress in meeting the region's fair share of housing needs, or its Regional Housing Need Allocation, or RHNA. The APR must be presented, The APR must be presented to the legislative body, must also be submitted to the HCD, which is California Department of Housing and Community Development, and also to OPR, which is Governor's Office of Planning and Research. The 2023 APR was presented to the Council a few weeks ago on March 27, 2024, at a regular City Council meeting. The Council received and filed the report, and on April 1st, the APR was submitted to HCD and OPR. Here is a background on housing element. Every city is required to adopt a housing element, which is part of the general plan. Housing element guides housing development in the city with goals, programs, and objectives. These programs also help meet the city's RHNA allocation. Housing element is updated every 8 years. The latest housing element for the current cycle, which is the 6th cycle, and is covering the years between 2021 to 2029, was adopted by the City Council on March 2023 and certified by HCD in May 2023. Here's a little bit of background on RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. State determines housing needs for regions of the state. Southern California Association of Government, or SCAG, determines and assigns a certain number of housing units within various income categories for each jurisdiction for the city to meet its fair share of housing needs in the region. This table shows our progress in meeting our regional housing needs assessment in 2023. As you see, the total number of permitted residential units is 196, which includes single-family home, multi-units, ADUs, and JADUs. In 2023, 151 residential units were constructed in the city. The second row shows the total number of permitted ADUs, which is 189 units, and constructed Sorry.
If you don't mind, can you start all over with that? Because we didn't see the screen.
Sure. So this table shows our progress in meeting our regional housing needs assessment in 2023. As you see, the total number of permitted residential units is 196, which includes single-family home, multi-units, ADUs, and JADUs. In 2023, 151 residential units were constructed in the city. The second row shows the total number of permitted ADUs, which is 189 units, and constructed ADUs, which is 151 units. In 2022, the city permitted 177 residential units and constructed 126 units. So the remaining RHNA allocation for the current cycle is total of 9,311 units. Out of 196 permitted units, 189 units are ADUs. This table shows our progress in meeting our regional housing needs assessment for the planning period of 2021 to 2029. It is broken down by the various income categories. The second column shows our RHNA allocation by various income levels and the total RHNA allocation of 9,759 housing units. The third column shows the total number of units permitted to date by income categories during this planning period. Units credited to meet our RHNA needs is based on the number of units. We have a total of 448 units permitted so far during this planning period. The last column shows the remaining units RHNA by income levels, with the total number of units remaining to be 9,311 units. This table shows a comparison of the permitted ADUs in the surrounding cities, including Huntington Beach, Seal Beach, Stanton, Fountain Valley, Santa Ana, Garden Grove, and Westminster. As you see, the numbers are vary greatly within each city. You can see on the chart that Garden Grove has the highest number of ADUs permitted and constructed in 2023. Westminster is about the second highest producer of the ADUs, with 189 permitted and 151 constructed units. Santa Ana has a little bit more permitted ADUs, but they are also a larger city than Westminster. These two charts show the comparison of ADU units permitted and built per capita, which means per 1,000 persons for the surrounding cities. As you can see, Garden Grove in dark blue color has the highest number of permitted ADUs per capita, which is 2.39 units per 1,000 persons. Westminster in light green color is slightly behind Garden Grove with 2.11 permitted ADUs per 1,000 persons. The graphs on the right shows that Garden Grove has the highest number of constructed ADUs, 2.4 per 1,000 persons, and Westminster is right behind that with 1.69 constructed ADUs per 1,000 persons. In general, we have been building more units over the years. In our fifth cycle planning period, the city permitted a total of 606 units in the entire 8-year cycle. For the current cycle, we have already permitted 448 units. The staff is currently working to finalize the ADU standard plan, which is a set of pre-approved plans that the public can use to submit their ADUs, which could reduce time and cost. The staff anticipates that we will continue to make significant progress towards our RHNA. Following the Planning Commission's recommendation, the City Council just approved a 54-unit project with 53 affordable units. This concludes my presentation, and staff is here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from any of the commissioners?
Yes, Chair, I have three here.
and you may have the answer to some, perhaps not, but I had a chance to look online and just check statewide the number of units that cities are expected and counties are expected to develop, and it's hundreds of thousands of units is what they're looking for eventually. Has any idea or any funding been made available through the state to assist cities with these projects or counties?
I can try to address that question. I believe the funding that you're speaking about here means funding for construction.
Well, yeah, for construction, statewide, just statewide, does the state have any funding mechanism to help cities develop these units?
The state has authorized some grant money for jurisdictions to plan how are we going to meet a RENA obligation. But in terms of actually helping jurisdictions to, as Commissioner is aware, we are not developers.
Yeah, okay.
But in terms of actual funding that would go towards construction, no, there's no such funding that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's all towards making plans.
Yeah,
that the state is.
Yes, it's planning funding.
Correct.
Yep, okay. And then just looking at our total goal for Westminster is 9,759, and we're into, I guess, are we into our third year of the plan?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
So we're into year 3, and we have how many units completed at this point? Like 400 and I didn't. You don't have to have the exact number, but I'm just.
Yeah, it's about that. It's 448.
438. So
448, yeah.
So we're into 3 years, and so we have like 9,300 to go, and we're into it 3 years. So probably we're not going to make the 9,759 units, as probably most cities in the state will not either. So has anybody started talking about the what-if factor? What if cities don't complete it, don't make it, don't get there? Just, that's rhetorical. And then my last question is on the ADU standard plan. That's close to completion. How close do you think it is?
We're pretty much finalizing that plan. I know we have our architecturals mostly done now, and we have actually construction drawings too. For the most part, it's almost completely done, but we still need to also create the forms and make sure we have the processes for rolling it out. So we need to make sure everything's there before we release it to the public.
Okay, so and I guess the goal here is to try and get the best quality we can under the circumstances. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'd actually like to turn Don's rhetorical question to an actual question. What does happen if our city and others fail to meet the goals?
So the state laws change every year. Staff actually just attended a legislative update this afternoon and learned that there's nearly 400 land use laws that's being proposed for this legislative season. Up till this point, cities' obligation is to plan for those units through zoning. And as long as you fulfill that criteria, when the next cycle comes, you will get a new set of RENA. That's the rule as of today. And if that's going to change, we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you.
I have a comment. What I do believe, the interest rate, the way it is now, it's not allowing people to take a second loan on their houses to build the second house or the ADU. As soon as the interest rate goes down, I bet you maybe half of Westminster or maybe more, they take the loans and build the ADU. So we get lucky, we might meet it. If not, we're going to be at least close to it.
I have questions regarding your presentation, page number 6, something, comparing between different city.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you show another column telling the percentage of each city so that we can comparing the accomplishment, the next earlier presentation. Previous page. Yes, just here. No. Yes, this one. You should have one another column so that you can tell the difference between percentage the city has been accomplished. So according to here, we can see Westminster, we have a number of ADU permitted 189 and completed is 151. So we can see the difference and we can see all the city, how they're growing or they been working effectively to help the people for ADU. That is my suggestion. And the other one is when you say ADU, it would be including all different types of ADU, including the JDU, JADU.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
And also a lot of residents, they have make illegal change. Now they try to legalize it. Are there any way we will try to help them to legalize it so that they can be permitted ADU?
Are you talking about the garages? The illegal garages you're talking about?
No, legalize. That means help them to legalize their illegal construction.
Oh, construction.
Yes, the city does, for property owners who have unfortunately chosen to convert a structure without permits, they have an opportunity to legalize it by bringing it into compliance with the codes, not just the zoning code, but the life and safety codes, the building codes and other codes, making sure that the conversion is properly done and protects the life and safety of the residents of the community. So there is that option. I don't know the percentage offhand of individuals who are moving forward in that option, but there are some in the process at this time who are in the process of trying to legalize their unpermitted ADUs.
Okay, thank you.
I had this is a little tangential to this discussion, but I had a kind of a process question. So when we approve a project like the recent one that has come up during this conversation, and the council takes action, is there a report back to the commission on that, and where would that fall in the agenda?
Well, the question is is the council required to report back to the commission?
No, I meant if staff does the staff report back to the commission on the action that the council took?
Yes, we can report back to you on items that the commission's taken on projects that you've seen. We can certainly do that.
I think that'd be great, just to and have an understanding of, very high level of what the discussion was and how the vote played out. I think it's just helpful for us to know how those things end up.
I definitely actually want to have a discussion around that when we get to agenda item number 12, so we can dive a little bit more deep into that. Any other questions regarding agenda item 5.1 from the commission? I know I had a couple of quick comments. Number one, ADUs. When it comes to ADUs, I know the state is very specific in that those are ministerially stamped at the counter. In other words, those never come before the commission. The only criteria that you guys look at is objective standards. Is there a way to get a list of what those objective standards are when it comes to building the ADUs so we can make it available to the public so that they know what the objective standards are?
It is currently already on our website. It basically comes down to the setback requirements.
Those are the only objective standards when it comes to ADUs or setback requirements?
That's correct.
Okay, maximum square feet?
It's the building height as well, building height plus the setback requirements.
Okay. And as a city, are we allowed to change or modify those objective standards?
Yes, we can, but we can't violate the state requirements like the 4-foot setbacks and the minimum size regulations. The tricky part with objective standards is it has to apply across the board. So, for example, you can't say the design shall be consistent. You have to be very specific and say, you'll use this manufacturing blue tile, you'll have this exact roof pitch. Those kind of things are objective versus subjective. But
And then not only does the state of California want to basically fast-track ADUs as quickly as possible from some of the laws that we've discussed here on this commission before, upcoming in 2025, I believe you kind of mentioned a little bit, there are going to be several specific plans that local residents can come in, basically pick their style of ADU that's going to fit in their yard, and they can just get that drawing from you. Is that correct?
That is part of the standard plans that we currently are working with. It's actually not as simple as just, printing it out off the computer and then getting it stamped over the counter. There's a little bit more involved with that because we still have to check like the setbacks, and every site is going to be different. So there will still be a little bit of work involved, but definitely it streamlines it and saves the property owner a lot of time and money in preparing the plans.
Is the
Yes.
city charging for people that want to use those plans? Because those are architectural, intellectual property that the city's invested to come up with.
We will not be charging for the plans, but of course they will be paying for the
Copies.
permits.
Right. But normally when you do a construction project, you actually hire an architect and they draw it out for you and you pay that architect. So we're eliminating all architects when it comes to building ADUs in this town, correct?
to an extent.
To an extent.
It's a standard.
These standard plans do not completely eliminate the need for professional drawings, but they do eliminate a portion because they do provide a basic floor plan and they do provide other information about the plan. But as Alice said, they don't provide a site plan. They don't provide the energy calculations and some of the other technical things that only a professional architect or engineer can provide. So what it does is I'd say it sort of meets the property owner halfway and say, if you avail of a standard plan, a certain aspect, a certain percentage of what you would normally have to do has already been taken care of, but the property owner is then on the hook for the rest of the technical requirements.
One more quick question for me. Let's say every R1 zone property in the city of Westminster puts up an ADU. Are we ever going to meet our RENA requirements?
I would say most likely not.
Okay. And it's probably not feasible either with the size of
Yeah.
certain lots and the size of certain houses.
Yeah.
So the ADU plan to meet RENA requirements is very minimal. If we're looking to actually meet some of those numbers or push towards that, we're going to need some bigger development projects brought into the city.
Yes.
Yeah, at about 200 a year, probably get, a couple of thousand maybe if we're lucky, but in the next RENA cycle, but that's assuming that we keep at the current rate.
And those are individual projects, not bedroom units. Those are established units. So it could be a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, but that still counts as one
Yes.
construction
Yeah.
project towards RENA.
Yes.
Okay?
I have a question. 2 or 3 R4 zones. To build a second or third unit, the maximum height is 35 feet, right? But some townhomes, they have 45 feet. So can you go and match the same thing as you built?
Yes, there's in the multifamily zones, there's different height requirements. In the R2 through R2 through R4, the maximum height is 25 feet and allows up to 2 stories. The R5 district, however, the height is based upon the width of a street, except in cases where the property adjoins R1 properties, I believe. So there is a greater allowance in an R5 property, and that's one of the the objective standards that's in the code right now. But in the R5 and in the R4 zone, it is 2 stories is the maximum number of stories.
It's up to 35 feet,
Yeah.
not 25.
35 feet.
Yeah, 35. Yeah, okay. And you cannot do anything about it. Can you get variance on it?
Well, there may be some cases where variances have been issued for some of the properties. And in some cases, we have some smaller density bonus projects that may explain why there's a variation in the height as well.
Okay, thanks.
You have questions? We are talking about ADU units. However, when we have the low housing units, will be considered a part of the ADUs to meet the requirement of the state.
If we would include ADUs as a requirement for affordable housing? Is that
Yes.
your question?
The question is about a big building where they build a lot of low housing units, like hundreds of them, and will be counted part of the calculation to meet the requirement of the state.
Yes, all housing units are counted towards our RENA goal. Whether it's multifamily housing, ADUs, single-family homes, condominiums, apartments, every single housing unit built counts towards our goal.
Yes. So in our city, how many plot of land belong to the city? That mean that can be converted to low housing units for the people.
Well, very little. All the city-owned land is used for city purposes, parks, the civic center that we're in right now, a storage yard on Heffley, the corporation yard on Olive Street. Those are really the city-owned properties. We don't have any excess city-owned property that's, available for housing development.
I see. And do you have any idea about the project that converting Westminster Mall into housing units? What the progress and
Yes.
how many will be in the future that we can have?
Sure. The specific plan allows up to 3,000 units on that site, and there's been some preliminary discussion with some of the property owners about possible development applications. We currently have, at the present time, we have one development application in for review that would propose 89 townhomes. We anticipate that in the coming months there'll be some other plans that'll come forward. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where the plans are ready yet to come to the Planning Commission, but we anticipate probably within the next 12 months, the Planning Commission will see development application for the mall site.
I see. Thank you very much. I don't have any.
Any other further questions on 5.1? Awesome. Let's go on to agenda item 5.2.
Thank you, Chair Wilbert. Members of the commission, and at this time, we have a presentation from Assistant City Attorney Russ Miyahiro, who will talk about the importance of voting to abstain and the best practices in regards to voting to abstain.
Yes, there was a request by one of the commissioners to explain what exactly is an abstention. Next slide. Is an abstention a no vote? Should they be counted at all in the vote? And when are they counted as an acquiescence in the majority vote? Next slide. Abstentions are generally viewed as a refusal to vote. To abstain means to refrain from voting. A planning commissioner's decision to abstain is a voluntary decision which involves the exercise of judgment or choice. However, legal disqualification or conflict of interest, on the other hand, is a separate and distinct category where an official will be required to abstain from participation. There is no choice. When an official is disqualified from voting because of a conflict of interest, the official has a duty and responsibility to recuse himself or herself and to abstain from participation, which includes walking off the dais. If the official is disqualified from participation, the official is not counted as meeting the quorum requirement. Next slide. Is an abstention consistent with the planning commissioner's responsibility? When viewed in the context of fulfilling the commissioner's responsibility as an appointed official to make decisions, i.e. doing what the residents and constituents want you to do, related to this value is the benefit of having the 5 planning commissioners participate in complex land use decisions to reflect the full range of community perspectives. Next slide. Establishing a quorum. The Planning Commission requires a quorum to conduct business. which means that at least 3 members must be present. As a general rule, if there are 3 planning commissioners present, a 2-to-1 vote is sufficient to pass a resolution approving or recommending a project to the City Council. However, the rule is different for the City Council, where 3 affirmative votes are required to approve resolutions, ordinances, and some other items required by statute. There are situations where a specific statute applies, which requires that the Planning Commission approve a measure by 3 affirmative votes. For example, Government Code Section 65354 states that a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission shall be made by the affirmative vote of not less than a majority of the total membership of the Commission. Next slide. Examples of the effect of an abstention. Last month, the Planning Commission voted 3-1-1, 3 affirmative, 1 denial, 1 abstention on a housing project. Since there were 3 affirmative votes, the 1 abstention vote had no effect on the vote. If there were only 3 planning commissioners present and 2 voted to approve and there was 1 abstention, the resolution would be approved because the majority of the quorum voted to approve the project. Also, if there were 4 planning commissioners present and 2 voted to approve, 1 voted to deny, and 1 abstention, the planning commissioner resolution would also be approved since the majority of the quorum present voted to approve the project. Next slide. There was a court decision that I found, it went back almost 100 years, in which they discussed the effect of an abstention. Martin versus Ballinger was a 1938 Court of Appeals case which discussed the ramifications of an abstention. The court indicated that when a member of a board is present but votes to abstain, the abstention is, in effect, a declaration that they consent to the majority quorum. The Ballinger Court quoted McQuillan's on municipal corporations, in which a refusal to vote, either to approve or deny, is an acquiescence in the majority vote. Next slide. Ballinger noted that the court's rationale was consistent with the public policy that legislative bodies take a position and vote on issues brought before them. This policy has been expressed as the duty of members of a city council to vote, and they ought not by inaction prevent action by the board. Next slide. The Institute for Local Government, which presented some information at the last Planning Commissioner training session, emphasized that the importance of local officials to not only attend public meetings, but also to be prepared and participate in the voting. Ultimately, however, it is up to the official to make the decision whether to participate or not. Any questions?
No, just wanted to thank you for putting that together. That was very helpful.
I have questions. In case they have the meeting with the on Zoom, will it be considered as a regular meeting? And people voting Zoom, and the result will be counted.
There are specific rules for a planning commissioner to participate by Zoom, and it's not like during the pandemic. In this situation, there's a couple of requirements that need to be fulfilled, such as an actual emergency and also the ability to make sure that the only person in the room when you're communicating to the commission does not have anybody under the age of 18 present.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on 5.2? We will go ahead and move on to item number 6, oral communications. Clerk, if you could read the record into procedure, or the procedure into record, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the time of the meeting that members of the public may address the Planning Commission on matters of public interest, which pertain to the city and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Members of the public wishing to address public hearing items shall do so at the time of the public hearing. Unless extended by a majority vote of the Planning Commission, comment shall be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. To address the Planning Commission, please complete a blue Request to Speak form that is provided at the entrance to the council chambers and submit the form to the Planning Commission clerk. When your name is called, please step to the podium at that time and state your name and city of residence for the record. And Chair, we have no comment cards.
All right, no comment cards. Then I will go ahead and close oral communication. We'll move on to item number 7, approval of minutes from March 20th, 2024.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion made by Commissioner Hamade, a second made by Commissioner Power. That's to approve the minutes of the March 20th, 2024 meeting. I'll go to call roll. Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamade?
Yes.
Commissioner Power?
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson?
Yes.
And Chair Wolbert?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
Fantastic. Item number 8, public hearings. We don't have any tonight, and it looks like we have one item under agenda number 9, regular business, 9.1 for discussion regarding the possible cancellation of the May 1st meeting.
I move approve.
Do you want to hear the reasoning from city?
Yes,
planning
thank you,
first?
Chair Wilbert. We don't really have anything to bring to the commission at the next meeting. We don't have any public hearings ready. And so we think we would request that the Planning Commission consider canceling that meeting, and we would see you again on May 15th.
I'll second that.
All right.
I read it.
I have a motion made by Commissioner Hamade, a second made by Commissioner Power. This is to cancel the May 1st, 2024 regular scheduled Planning Commission meeting. I'll go to call roll. Commissioner Bowie?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamade?
Yes.
Commissioner Power?
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson?
Yes.
And Chair Wolbert?
Sure. No, just kidding. Yes, yes, yes.
5-0, motion carried.
All right, we'll move on to item number 10, reports. It looks like we don't have any tonight. Item number 11, matters from staff, 11.1, introduction to some new staff.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. On April 10th, last Wednesday, the City Council approved the Milton Senior Affordable Housing Project that came before this body in February. So just an update on that. And also, something very exciting happened in the Community Development Department a couple of weeks ago when we had a new staff joining us. I'd like to introduce to you Patricia Pereza, who's sitting over on that side of the dais. She joined us as a new administrative assistant just a few weeks ago. She has close to a decade of experience working for state and municipal governments, agencies including the HR department for the City of Culver City, as well as the Parks and Recreation Department and the City Manager's office for City of Compton. So we're very happy that she is with us now. From this point on, she will be part of the Very Happy production team for your agenda packets, and she'll also perform secretary role at the Planning Commission meetings, as well as preparing meeting minutes and sending out communications. So I'd like to invite you to join me in welcoming Patricia.
You're welcome.
We're very glad to have you and look forward to working with you for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, item number 12, matters from the Planning Commission, including AB 1234, reports when required. Any other agenda items or anything you guys want to bring up? Commissioners? I have one small one in regard to the Milton Manor project. When the City Council voted it last week, a couple of things and observations that I would love to see happen going forward, and I mentioned it at the City Council meeting, was the lack of communication between the planning staff and the city staff when it came to this specific item. Number one, I get it, and I talked to the city attorney, Christian Betancourt, I'm sorry, I get his last name wrong every time, Christian, about, potentially notifying the city council when they will be voting on something or when there's a recommendation that they're going to be voting on. He, of course, said, let's not have city council members at the planning commission meetings, which I completely agree, but they could have been given a notification to the YouTube channel where they could watch the public record of what we already asked at the Planning Commission. I would say 90 to 95% of the questions that they asked, we already did. So to better further save city resources and city employees' time, just give them, hey, guys, by the way, you're going to be voting on, something that's coming over on your agenda. Here's a link to the YouTube channel in case you want to see what the Planning Commission did and the questions that we asked and how we voted on it. I think that would really do a great service to the city to be able to have access to that. And on the flip side of that coin, if city staff ever required one of these commissioners to come and give an opinion or be invited to speak on behalf of the project or something like that, I'm sure if that's appropriate from a legal standpoint, city commissioners would love to be notified at a minimum that a project we approved and sent over to the city council was going to be voted on that night. Most public, I think, don't sign up for the city council agenda and get that emailed to them. I just happen to, A, get the city council agenda emailed to me, and B, see it on a social media post. I don't think it's appropriate for people involved in city planning to know about when an item gets on the city council's agenda from a social media post versus being told by city staff. Me personally would find it greatly beneficial that, hey, planning commissioners, by the way, this item's coming up for that vote from the city council. And maybe they just want to come speak on behalf of the public, because that's who we represent. So at a minimum, just a heightened level of communication would be, I think, appropriate for whatever the legal ramifications of that communication are. Obviously, we don't want to violate any Brown Act issues or anything like that. So just my 2 cents to city staff, and always appreciate the hard work that you do. Believe me, there's no question, even the presentation tonight, exceptionally hard work. RENA law, tracking the housing, tracking the units, how many units are going in. It's a painstaking process. I don't think the general public understands how many hours are required even to put in what might seem as a simple report. It's hundreds of hours. So on the behalf of the public, I would like to thank you personally for all the efforts that you do to make these meetings run. It is very appreciated. Any other comments from the Planning Commission for item number 12?
Well, hey, one thing is, would like to welcome all of the new staff to our group. And before we adjourn, may I suggest we have a memorable pictures together with all of them.
Sure. Can we take a picture after we adjourn?
Yeah, either.
All right. Let's do that, Tony. I like the idea. If there's nothing else, we'll go on to item 13, adjournment. We will adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission on Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.